So I want to use what you offered as a bridge to the last segment of our conversation, where I want to ask you, we have already shared so many practices and ways we encourage and instill hope. I want us to, in this last segment, be even more specific, if we can, in any specific practices and behavioral sciences that we use or that we have observed to give a plethora of experiences that would be useful and pragmatic for anybody wanting to pick up any practice we can offer into the fields of encouragement and hope. And I will start with offering something that is a build on what Trevor just talked to, in the idea of being connected to ourselves and to our true nature. One of my observations about the world is not only do we live in a very cynical world, which is one of the difficulties to become encouraging and hopeful and offer these, the way the world makes you weak, the way the world makes you lesser than who you are, the way the world diminishes your self-esteem is actually exactly the opposite from that point, Trevor, you're making. It's by displacement, by distancing you from who you are, by instilling in you the need to crave something you don't need to crave, all those various persuasions that displace you and distance you from you, they make you weaker, because when you're separated from your, to use your word, frequency and nature, you're weaker because you're not nourished by your own very nature. And so a practice I have personally developed for many, many years was that whenever I can, sometime with senior executives in a large company or sometime with a child, the best way to encourage that person is to give them back their best, to give them back their core essence. Sometime in a word, sometime in a gesture, sometime actually formulating in language an observation, as some of you just offered, that I see them and I see their core in a way that perhaps they've never been seen before. And offering them that back and walking away from the situation so they have back a bit of themselves that they were in need of. That's a practice. It's something each one of us can do. It's a muscle, or it's a practice to develop to become versatile with. So I'd start this as an offering of practices. Please, Lisa.
And what you're saying, Aviv, which is amazing, and really what Trevor was saying and what Karen was saying, to liberate our passion for life, because that's hope and encouragement. I had read several years ago that young people don't dream, that there's a real void for that ability just to dream and have all these, maybe things that you want to hope for that can't happen. But when we were young, I know we would fantasize a lot. I wanted to be Barbara Streisand and all those kinds of things. Today, young people, they don't dream. They don't make up stories, if that makes any sense. And I think that, they're, because of the school system, they're put into the box and they're not given that freedom. So I would say, offer somebody the chance to explore or make a dream or make a plan. And many times those plans and dreams don't come true, but it's the journey during the want and the need and the hope and the prayers for that dream that take you on your path, and other wonderful things may happen. So I think encouragement for dreaming big or expanding one's mind out to what could be possible is a wonderful gift, particularly with young people, that we can offer to another life.
Thank you. Please, George.
Yeah, well, there are a lot resonates with me with all that has been said. But concerning young people, and especially, I have a bit of experience because I'm a certified trainer for extracurriculum adult education. So I have been trained specifically for adults, but I have a lot of other exams from younger people, from one-to-one, trying to encourage in different situations. What I have found very especially effective is in the first place to somehow to accept reality. Reality in what sense? To say that to the other person that, okay, I know we're all vulnerable, we're all fragile many times in our life, and that's okay. It's okay to feel like this. It's okay to feel like this because life is unpredicted. You can't actually control life. This is a main point. And to start to engage themselves with this fragility, vulnerability, unpredictable of life, and to start to feel not get personally involved in the situation, but you see that the situation for everyone on this planet, especially in the 21st century. And then, because here there's a paradox for me that in order for hope and encouragement to be really effective, first you need to accept reality in some way or another. It can't be hope that fantasizing a bright future, like somehow a heaven of whatever kind, without doing nothing or taking into account what is really going on. But the moment you accept it, you can find a lot of solutions, and you can help other people to find solutions as well. Concerning techniques, because usually up to now my experience is to one-to-one person most of the time. It's like I try to take into myself, and it does work, all these vulnerabilities, fragilities, stop situations. I take it into myself and just pondering a bit about them, having the benefit of not be personally involved in the situation. It's another person's life. I'm considered it like a very good friend that I want to succeed in their life. So I don't take inside me the burden and the pressure of the situation. And my own mind and feelings and sentiments and everything, I try to lightly explore different solutions, ways out, and then try to somehow to connect to person, to offer it in the table in a light way. Maybe you could do that. What about exploring that? And inside this, even in a work situations with colleagues can work, let it on the table and give it then some time, because it's not all the time it's automatic. And I don't feel in myself because I propose it, the other person can immediately pick it up from the table and do something with it. So inside this technique that I try to apply this time is there is a certain kind of neutrality in this. I'm doing this because I want to help, but it's your responsibility to pick it up. And I say the word responsibility because in all the situations that I felt this deep urge to help, I do feel the responsibility for the situation. Not necessarily for the person, but the situation, I felt responsible as well. And from this shared responsibility, I managed what Trevor started to say very eloquently, to connect with myself. Because to find real solutions, I can't do it from a book or from a self-help book, from something that I read. I need to connect with myself in order to be able to provide real help. And feeling the responsibility, it makes the tick inside my life.
Let me codify the 4 practices that I think you offered. Practice 1 is to be present, to acknowledge and accept what is.
Right. Yes.
Easier said than done. It's a practice of living. To look at what is, not suppress it, not deny it, not ignore it, not avoid it, and make a space in yourself to accept it. Right there is encouragement and hope. Practice 2, when you are one-on-one and somebody presents a set of challenges, that you actually allow yourself to do the practice of empathy, to walk in their shoes. In a place of neutrality, you allow yourself to take in the information, the complexity of the situation,
Right.
free of the need to have a perfect or an immediate solution, to explore and ponder. And simply that space that you make in yourself is the second practice of encouragement in this chain. The third is to offer ideas, to offer those ideas in an open-ended way, not thinking that you have the right solution or the complete solution, but to create a table of plenty in terms of possible pathways. When I do one-on-one coaching and I ask people to come up with a solution, they articulate a strategy, and then I say, and what else? And they articulate a second. And the practice is describe not 2 possible approaches, but 7. Because then you have a broader spectrum of choice. And the last practice you offered is you do not take away from the person their own responsibility. You make the space, you make an offering, you ultimately provide them the space to take on their own responsibility to their challenge, to their opportunity, because in that there is encouragement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying all these points. Thank you very much.
More practices, more behaviors, please, Miriam.
I work in a school that is full of practices. I could be talking about this for 10 hours, but I chose a few. But I want to start with one that's connected to what Trevor was saying before, and that's personal exampleship. This isn't exactly a practice, but it has to do with my own commitment to be in good well-being. And it sounds strange, but to try to come to the children when I am happy to be alive, and to have that as a consciousness in me when I meet them, or at least to address the fact and to know that today I don't feel like that, but that's okay. But at least to have a consciousness about that. Because even just, I'm an art teacher, so even just being happy that we have 10 fingers is a lot. So that's the one thing. I ask myself, am I happy to be alive? And so we have what's called success notebooks, where children from really young ages, I think from 3rd grade, once a week they have an hour where they write down their successes from the week, because just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so is success. Because trying is a huge success. Yeah, if somebody got fat, completely didn't succeed doing something, but he kept trying, that is a huge success. It's much easier to succeed than it is to keep trying when you're not succeeding. But once you put the spotlights on that, so the whole coaching and how to, what would be called a success, that's a whole question on its own account. But that's very encouraging. So to have that practice of writing things down, articulating them and sharing them with somebody else is it's a great thing. And each person can have their own, their own notebook. It can be a little pad that you walk around with, and you can say, I'm used to doing this, but this time I chose not to do it. Success. And to catch it and not let it go by and not be familiar with it as if it didn't really matter. That when you make things matter. And like Karen was saying before, the small moments of life matter, you know, and that word itself, matter, when something moves from electricity or energy into matter, it matters. So that's one thing. Another practice that I've been doing for the last 20 years with children that are in 7th grade, and we draw personal shields. And within those personal shields, there are 3 symbols that symbolize 3 questions, and I'll just say very shortly what they are. One is, what do I love about myself? In short, there are different questions for boys and girls, but it doesn't matter. That's, what do I love about myself? What do I appreciate about myself? What am I really glad that I have in my character? The second question is, what have I gotten better in the last half a year, so as not to just wait till you have the complete result, but that you're endearing the process on the way. And the third question is, what would I like to get better in? Which means, where am I not perfect? And what that it would really help me if I could get better at that. And that's a huge question. And these are children in 7th grade. And what really empowers them is that, and it's the shachner, to
Persuasion?
the persuasion that we are responsible for our own lives.
A conviction, the belief.
It's conviction as well, that they can decide who they want to be in another year, or when they grow up, or tomorrow. It's in our hands, in everybody's hands. So that's a mindset which is really important. And well, I'll just use one more because I don't want to take up too much time. But as I spoke before about language, there's locating language where if you say the same sentence again and again and again and again, at some point it will get into our blood, it will get through our skulls. So I like an example of what George was saying before. If you don't know, you can say, I need to think about that. That is $1 million sentence for teachers, because so many times you're in a situation where you have to decide something. And I learned that you can say, I need to think about that. I don't need to respond right now. So language is a really big thing to think about when you want to cause encouragement and hope. It's a tool.
Beautiful. A powerful language as a self-instruction tool. Perry, you were going to come in. Please, yes. Practices. We're interested in this closing round of practices.
There are 5 that I do regularly. I didn't really label them like that until you started to think about it. But one is saying thank you, manners, taking the time to have a rich interaction between people that I meet, not to speed through things. In that, I always find it very difficult to answer the question, how am I? And I will answer that question in a whole bunch of ways, never, ever, ever saying I'm okay, cannot do it. I'll say, well, in what way do you might mean that? Or, sometimes that's very difficult for me to talk about because I don't really think of myself. And then I'll have a discussion. It'll end up being a conversation. I'm not sure everyone appreciates it so much, but it's a practice I cannot not do. The second one is I always put forth to someone, even if it's someone I just meet, whatever I'm attracted or caught by that I think is something worthwhile. So I'll take the time to point that out. It could be the way a person's dressed. It could be something about their stature. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll even do it on Zoom calls. I find that there's something in me that calls out to give confirmation to another life, what they're in at the moment. The third one is people I know better. I know a little more about them. I'll point out what it is I think they do well and where they make a difference for other people. I want to give that confirmation in that way as well, that encourage more of that to happen. Perhaps it's something they don't realize. The fourth one would be the uniqueness of every person. There's so many ways that we're unique. And I will always try to point out where I can that a person doesn't need to be someone else. You can only be a Confederate copy or a bad copy of someone else. But you can be the best unique you that of anyone in the world, because no one else can be you but you. And I'll talk about the fingerprints or the blood type or your DNA or how you're totally unique. You cannot avoid it. And I think that it's lacking that understanding that from that very scientific way, no one else can be like each other. And the last one that's moving for me and something I remind myself as well is about awe, about how incredible living on this place that we live and how unique that is. And I'll often tell a story about how someone else gave me this, and I'll repeat it because it's one of the best ways I know to point it out. And a lady once told me in a very brief couple of sentences that we live on a thin crust of earth floating upon a ball of liquid fire in space, where all around us, above us, is the coldness that nothing can live. And this thin crust would not even be as thick as a coat of paint on a bowling ball.
Thank you. Trevor, please, more practices.
Never give up on somebody. I'm learning to never give up, even though there may be no improvement. I teach a mentally disabled man twice a week for an hour. Now, I know this is for 3 years, and this man is haunted by the past. And sometimes he's with it in the present, and the past haunts him, and he comes back, and he says things like, I'm a bad person. And I have spent 3 years telling him that he is not a bad person, that he's all right, that he has a difficult life. Now, I didn't realize this until this call, actually. But what is it in me that will not give up on another human being? Whether I think they're improving or not, it doesn't actually, it does matter. And of course, I want this man to be well. But what if he doesn't get well? It doesn't matter, because I believe that the effort of not giving up is what we all need. I don't want somebody to give up on me. I don't want to give up on my family. And if that gets into the world, then whatever comes after, and it's coming closer and closer, it's important that lives. Somebody did not give up on me, and I do not want to give up on this man that I work with, and I won't.
Thank you. Karen, you want to come still on practices as we about to bring this to landing?
Yes, it's small, but I think it's quite important, and it is being spoken of, but in different ways. If I'm teaching or introducing something to one child, group of children, it's so vitally important to start actually where they are, so that they don't experience a gap. And as I said, I'm creating a series of activities, so I thought to just share the one about value. And I've organized the games around the home. So with the children, the local children that I've been experimenting with, we've started with their homes and actually looked at the different, and interestingly enough, the nature of a home sort of falls into 5 different areas which we've looked at. And these they could identify, and by making this initial separation, their engagement was to do with their lives, their experience, but rather than it being a generalization, it became a bit more specific, had a little bit more depth, and they could see these different aspects. So from that platform, we can then talk about our home, the planet, or our home ourselves, how we work as a human. And then that can expand to our home, the solar system, and our home within the universe, depending where one goes. But the crucial practice is to always start where the children are, where they can relate to, and where they feel empowered, actually, the word that's been shared. And then the encouragement and the hope become part of the activity.
Thank you. Let me bring this to landing here with George. You're insisting to bring another practice.
I would like to say a very small story that has something that Miriam and Karen Trevor from the school education system concerning my daughter. It's a very small. In the 2nd grade, the teacher has a great idea to put all the class. They made the identity card, but not the usual identity card we have some as adults. For each person, all the other class say and write down certain qualities that this pupil has. And the teacher take all the trouble to put it in a formal identity card. Let's say generous, smart, everything for each child. And my daughter, after so many years, whatever remembers from the 2nd grade is most preponderant is this, and has it on her desk every day to look all this quality where the collectivity of all other peers send to her. And I find it as a hope and encouragement, and the teacher has an intelligence to build, not only to encourage each child, but to come from the collective, which is really important. And my daughter remembers that as a very important moment of her life, that all her peers put in this identity card all the qualities they thought she had at this time. And what made her believe and trust the others and believe in the collective encouragement as well, not only to person. That's why I feel to have something to momentonize these moments, especially in school years, is really important. Thank you very much for the time.
We become the people we become through the recognition and the grace and the help of others. And we have just shared a broad range of powerful practices. This last story from you, George, about receiving the gifts of the qualities others seeing in you. This practice you offered, Karen, about always start where you are and build the discovery of what is here, right now. The tree doesn't grow by having jealousy that another tree has a better location in the forest canopy. It grows from the power of its roots. Always begin right here, right now. And Trevor, you offer this powerful transmission. Never give up. Never give up on another person. And as you do so, you make the invitation that where it comes to you, whatever it is that gives you life, that it never gives up on you. So a broad range of practices. And what we attempted to do here today is to be with, to dwell with the idea of a human as a fountain of encouragement and hope. How we live into this in many small and large ways as parents, as teachers, as friends, as coaches, as mentors, as strangers that sometimes get to save another or be saved by another. And we hope that in some way we galvanize or we transmit those very natures of properties and qualities to others. And if those touched you in any way, you can join and become part of the process, part of the conversation, by becoming a member in this endeavor we call Portals of Perception, where people from all around the world are coming together to be in discovery, in conversation about these times and how we humans can sense and discover into our greater potential through these times of change. Thank you very much.